Cosmo is one of two TCG exclusive archetypes that premiered in Clash of Rebellions, the other being the K2 archetype. The archetype consists of light and dark psychic pilot monsters and machine spaceship monsters who banish themselves to special summon other Cosmo monsters. The pilot monsters have a quick effect to banish themselves from the field to special summon any Cosmo monster from the hand with a higher level, while the spaceship monsters have a trigger effect to banish themselves from the graveyard, if destroyed to special summon or add to the hand depending on the card. Any Cosmo monster from the deck with a lower level. The archetype also includes several effects that manipulate the player's life points, with some cards requiring the player to lose and pay life points, and some restoring them. Similar to the initial Psychic Monsters origin, the Cosmo cards seem to be based on properties from the Wizard of Oz and Star Wars. The pilot monsters are based on characters, the spaceship monsters on objects and vehicles, and the field spell card on a location. The psychic of the pilot monsters is likely a reference to the Force-sensitive characters from Star Wars trivia. Incidentally, there is also a concept known as Cosmo in the Saint Seiya franchise. It is an archetype of dark zombie monsters. It is one of two formerly TCG exclusive archetypes debuted in Code of the Duelist, the other being FA appearance. The Vendred monsters resemble mutated creatures and zombies, common from several horror series, in particular the Resident Evil franchise, as well as a few possible nods to the Spawn franchise and the Thing etymology. The names of this archetype are blends of the word vendetta and other words, particularly dread in English, andetto in Japanese, and the words for terror, fright, or fear in other languages. Additionally, as shown on Avendred in the Japanese version, Advended and Revended cards, the words Avenge, Advent, and Revenge also comes into play at times. This may refer to the fact that Revendred Slayer appears to be against the Vendred. It is also inferred that Slayer wants vengeance for what the Vendred did to his family. K2 is an archetype of high-level monsters with various attributes and types, primarily light and machine, introduced in Clash of Rebellions. It is one of two TCG exclusive archetypes that premiered in that set, the other being the Cosmo archetype. The archetype has become infamous for its ability to provide cheap and generic monster removal, while bypassing almost any protection the target may have. However, due to Master Rule 4, K2 monsters cannot get rid of monsters in the extra monster zone if that player's main monster zone is full. Appearance: each K2 monster is based on a monster from different K2 franchises, such as Godzilla, Ultraman, Pacific Rim, and Gamera. Their field spell represents a common setting for the movies, while the other spell and trap cards seem to be common scenes in these movies. Etymology: Kaiju is a Japanese term meaning strange beast or monster, frequently used to describe giant monsters from movies. However, the Japanese archetype name is a pun, as it is written as instead of with a kanji for destruction, replacing the one for strange. This pun isn't visible in TCG languages. In Korean, the pun doesn't work either, and the name simply translates to destruction beast. Is an archetype of dark monsters that debuted in Cybernetic Horizon. The danger monsters are based on cryptids, animals of questionable existence, from around the world. Lord Emperor, known as Machine Emperor in the OCG, is a group of anti-synchro monster cards and a sub-archetype of mech lords used by the three pure nobles and later Aparia in the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's anime. Cards were given to their respective owners by their god, from large monoliths sent from space with an infinity symbol on the side. Also, each of the decks, which consist of one Mech Lord Emperor and all of the other parts that go with it, are sent one at a time. Each of the Mech Lord Emperor monsters has a colored aura around them, as seen on the older card illustrations. Whistle is surrounded by a green aura, Skeel is surrounded by a blue aura, and Granule is surrounded by an orange aura. They are identified by the atom-like core inside the infinite sign on their chests. They were created by energy when the energy reactors around the world exploded. Mech Lord Emperor Whistle Primo's Mech Lord Emperor was test-driven by Ghost, who first used it against Trudge and later against Yusei Fudo. In the anime, Whistle is a monster composed of 5 monsters via the effect of Mech Lord Emperor Whistle, which are all summoned by the effect of Wise Core when it is destroyed via a card's effect. When the 5 parts are combined, they form a humanoid robot. In its battle against Yusei, the right arm, Whistle Guard, is destroyed, but is replaced with Whistle Guard 3, and later his left arm Whistle Attack is upgraded by the effect of Wise A3 into Whistle Attack 3. Yusei won the duel by destroying its head. Whistle Top Mech Lord Emperor Skeel Lester's Mech Lord Emperor was first used in a duel against Leo and Luna. When the 5 parts are combined, they form a bird-like robot. In this duel, Lester tributed his Skeel Attack to special summon Skeel Attack 3 by the effect of Sky A3, which in turn was tributed to special summon Skeel Attack 5. With this upgrade, he defeated both Leo and Luna. Skeel is also a monster composed of 5 monsters, which are all summoned by the effect of Skycore, and combined by the effect of Mech Lord Emperor Skeel. Mech Lord Emperor Granule Jacob's Mech Lord Emperor was received by Jacob following Primo's defeat. It is also a machine-type monster, made up of a Mech Lord Emperor body and multiple other parts summoned by the effect of Grand Core, which can be upgraded with better versions. Unlike the other Emperors, in the anime, Granule can only absorb the synchro monsters by using other body parts effects, such as Granule Attack and Granule Top 5. Granule is considered the strongest between the 3 Emperors in the anime, because it can use the absorbed synchro monsters for both attack and defense, as seen in episode 108. All of the individual Mech Lord Emperor parts can be used by their kin. As Primo used skill carrier parts on Whistle, all Mech-Lord Emperors are focused on absorbing opponents' synchro monsters to gain attack power equal to absorbed synchro monsters' attack power. This can be countered by Axel Synchro summoning an Axel Synchro monster, using a fusion monster or ritual monster instead of a synchro monster, including using synchro monster as a fusion materials special summoning an assault mode monster. Countering with Turbo Warrior, since it cannot be targeted by the effects of level 6 or lower monsters, use this monster, or simply not using a synchro monster. This is because they wanted to get rid of synchro monsters, believing that they helped cause the destruction of the world. All of the monsters of each series other than the Mech-Lord Emperors themselves can be upgraded to larger monsters with higher levels and stronger effects. At least one piece each of Whistle, Skill, and Granule has been shown to be upgradable to level 5 in the anime. Support for this archetype comes in the form of each Mech-Lord Emperor parts, which are designed for use on one monster but can be used interchangeably. Their cores named after the Mech-Lord Emperor names: root word, wise, sky, and grand. A series of trap cards designed for individual Mech-Lord Emperors again. Root word, followed by the initial of the parted targets, and the level of the summoned monster, wise A3 for example, as well as a series of cards supporting all three in general. All Mech-Lord Emperors are special summoned along their respective parts by an egg-like core. The Mech-Lords were created by the NRD as a response to the greed and selfishness of humanity, who had abused the NRD as power to control evolution. In episode 149, Z1 showed that the army of Mech-Lords could be stopped by removing the negative emotions that caused the NRD to go out of control. Army, known as Machine Imperial Soldier in the OCG, are an anti-synchro archetype and a sub-archetype of Mech-Lords. They are utilized by Aparia in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D. The monsters are Mech-Lord Army of Whistle, Mech-Lord Army of Skill, and Mech-Lord Army of Grain, each of which are named after one of the three Mech-Lords. Their Japanese names end with "I" translated to nothing in Hebrew and one in German, which may contrast to the Mech-Lord Emperors with infinity in their names, signifying that they are smaller and weaker. Are an archetype of cards used by Maximilian Pegasus. All Toon monsters are Toon cards, including Mangarayu. Toon Alligator is the only Toon monster card that is also not a Toon monster design appearance. Each Toon monster is a highly exaggerated cartoon caricature of another monster. Is an archetype of Earth Rock ritual monsters introduced in Ignition Assault design. The members are named for the Olympian spirits, a group of spirits mentioned in many Renaissance-era texts on magic rituals and ceremonies. Each spirit corresponds to one of the classical planets of antiquity, which were not actually planets, just celestial objects visible to ancient astronomers. An archetype of light and dark dragon monsters used by Seto Cable. A mysterious woman named Kisara carries the spirit of the Blue Eyes White Dragon, as revealed in both the anime and manga. Is an archetype released in the Dual Terminal. The term Dragunity is a portmanteau of the words dragon and unity. Their effects mainly revolve around equipping any level 3 or lower dragon monsters in your graveyard to your winged beast monsters in play, in the sense of the dragons transforming into weapons, or the winged beast Dragunity monsters uniting with their dragon steeds as Dragunity Knights because of their heavy focus on sending monsters to the spell and trap card zones. The Dragunity archetype is often compared to the Crystal Beast and Cyberdark archetypes. They also utilize powerful dragon synchro monsters, although they require dragon tuner monsters as well as wing beast non-tuners. Justice is an archetype of dark machine monsters used by the Ghost Army Diablo in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. They are empowered during the user's battle phase when the opponent controls light monsters. The trump card of the archetype is Ally of Justice Catastor, who destroys any non-dark monster in battle. The Allies of Justice are introduced in Dual Terminal Synchro Awakening with further support in Dual Terminal Invasion of Worms, Dual Terminal Justice Strikes Back, and Dual Terminal Dragunity of the Hurricane TCG-wise. They have been released in Hidden Arsenal. G. Short for Tech Genus is an archetype used by antinomy in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. They are all bionic in appearance to reference the identity of their user. They made their TCG and OCT debut in Extreme Victory. In the Japanese anime, each of them has a code in their name which references their type, followed by a number. This includes their status, as they have X's at the end of their names to indicate the evolution of synchro monsters. They are high-tech monsters from the future, and they share a variation of this effect. In the anime, this card can also be treated as a machine-type monster. When a spell or trap card you control targets this card, you can have this card's original attack and defense power. When this card is destroyed, you can add one TG monster card from your deck to your hand. You cannot summon it this turn in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's Tag Force 5. It is possible to use the card obtained during the same turn, and the attack and defense reduction is not present among their effects. The real-life version of the TG cards consist of monsters who can replace themselves with different monsters when they're destroyed. Most of the non-synchro monsters search for other TG monsters besides ones that share their name. For example, a TG Warwolf can search for any TG monster besides TG Warwolf, while all of the synchro monsters, except TG Blade Blaster, draw cards or summon monsters despite their bionic appearance and names. The only existing machine TG monsters are all XL synchro monsters with the exception of TG Halberd. Cannon Assault Mode. All TG supporting spell and trap cards have an initialism in their names. Is an archetype of Earth machine monsters that made their official debut as an archetype in the booster pack Starstrike Blast Trivia. The Karakuri debut and Starstrike Blast seems to be equivalent to the Scrap debut and Duelist Revolution. Their synchro monsters have been released in Ultra and Ultimate Rare Karakuri Shogun MDL00 Buri and Karakuri Steel Shogun MDL00X Burita. One of their monsters and support cards is a super rare Karakuri Ninja MDL339 Sazang and Karakuri Clock, and the rest are common and rare. The MDL in their English names is an abbreviation of Model I. Karakuri Merchant Model. Number 177 Inashichi is Karakuri Merchant Model 177 Inashichi, the first two model digits of all Karakuri main deck monsters, except for Karakuri Barrel Model 96 Shinkuro, make the third and fourth, if any, when multiplied together. The cloth flaps attached to most of the Karakuri are called shide. Eternity is an archetype of dark monsters used by Calling Kessler in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. They revolve around the handless strategy, bringing out their potential when there are no cards in the player's hand. The first Infernity cards were released as promotional cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5. The Stardust Accelerator, Infernity Archfiend, Infernity Dwarf, and Infernity Guardian. They get a small amount of support occasionally until the release of the Shining Darkness, where they had gotten 15 more cards. Named Message of Death in Japanese is an archetype used by Destiny Board as part of its victory condition. The player who gathers all 5 letters on the field wins the duel. In the manga and all Japanese appearances, the word spelled out is the English word death. In all other languages, the word spelled out is the English word final. The weakness of Destiny Board is that, if Destiny Board or Spirit Message card leaves the field, any Destiny Board and all Spirit Message cards that cards control or controls are sent to the graveyard. Another weakness is that Destiny Board and the Spirit Message cards each occupies a spell and trap zone, limiting the player's use of spell and trap cards. If another spell or trap card is occupying one of the zones, the message cannot be completed and the player cannot use any spell or trap cards. In media in the manga, the card to only be activated while Dark Necro figures in the graveyard. Instead of playing a Spirit Message spell card each turn, the board simply creates a letter. However, if Dark Necrophir is removed from the graveyard, then the Ouija board breaks. In the manga, the one who controls the Ouija board is a spiritual form of Dark Necrophir. In the anime, it was her dismembered hand. An archetype consisting of dark fiend monsters. This archetype is prominent for its discarding effects from your hand into the graveyard, as many Dark World monsters retain and gain extra effects, depending on which player's card effect discarded them. They were introduced in Elemental Energy, with further support and strike of Neo's Gates of the Underworld structure deck and Primal Origin Brawn. Mad King of Dark World uses this archetype in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX anime. Several other members also appear in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX anime as dual spirits. Maid is an archetype of female dragon monsters with various attributes introduced in Mystic Fighters etymology. This archetype is most likely inspired by the series Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid by Kuyao Shinjaya, which he himself has given his seal of approval on this archetype. Their human names are related to the task they do. Their OCG dragon names are German for the element they use to achieve that task. The TCG names seem to take inspiration from character names at maid cafes commonly found in media, usually being an anagram of the person's actual name. The main deck monster pairs with the same attribute has 5 level differences between each other, and the attack power of the higher level members is based on the defense power of both forms, plus 1000. House Dragon Maid is the only exception of this rule, with only 1 level and 500 more attack points difference between her regular and dragon forms. chamber dragon maid is the only member that doesn't have a dragon form. She's also the only member that can switch into any of the dragon forms, or even house dragon maid. Is an archetype of dark spellcaster monsters, with its first member released in Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon and its first support released in Millennium Box Gold Edition. They are focused on alternative victory conditions, and has support related to summoning or strengthening beat sticks resembling Exodia. It is related to the Forbidden One archetype, while many people refer to the Forbidden One cards as Exodia cards. Only Exodia the Forbidden One ahead is part of this archetype. The main card, Exodia the Forbidden One, is one of the first 5 effect monsters ever to be released and the first card to have an alternative victory condition. Notably, Exodia the Forbidden One and the other Forbidden One cards were the only monsters ever specifically mentioned in the rulebooks, other than as an example due to Exodia the Forbidden One being the only card with an alternative victory condition at the time. Exodia the Forbidden One is no longer mentioned in the rulebook, as its card text suffices to clarify its effect. Exodia the Forbidden One is one of the most iconic cards in the franchise, being well known for its automatic win condition and Yuji's use of it in the first episode of the anime. Yu-Gi-Oh! Capsule Monster Coliseum. The player can fuse the 5 pieces of Exodia to summon the legendary Exodia Incarnate, the complete Exodia, but it will be only like a normal fusion piece with an ability to cause massive damage on the monsters that is in range. That is known by Obliterate. The legendary Exodia Incarnate can also be unlocked in Yu-Gi-Oh! The Duelists of the Roses in the library, when you successfully summon Exodia, but it will be impossible to see him in and the only available status will be his type, which is Spellcaster, and his attribute, which is Dark. Known as Sealed One in Japanese, is an archetype of dark spellcaster monsters released in Legend of Blue Eyes White Dragon, with its first support released as a weekly Shonen Jump promotional card in 2007. Forbidden One was one of the first deck themes, and it still remains a popular one. While many people refer to the Forbidden One cards as Exodia cards, the Exodia archetype is a separate but related archetype, and the only Forbidden One card to be a part of it is Exodia the Forbidden One, the head. The main card, Exodia the Forbidden One, is one of the first 5 effect monsters ever to be released and the first card to have an alternative victory condition. The Forbidden One cards are some of the most iconic cards in the franchise, being well known for their automatic win condition and Yuji's use of them in the first episode of the anime. Notably, Exodia the Forbidden One and the other Forbidden One cards were the only monsters ever specifically mentioned in the rulebooks, other than as an example due to Exodia the Forbidden One being the only card with an alternative victory condition at the time. Exodia the Forbidden One is no longer mentioned in the rulebook, as its card text suffices to clarify its effect. Originally, the complete Forbidden One set was extremely hard to obtain, with all 5 pieces being ultra rare. They have since been reprinted in lesser rarities, making a complete set easy to obtain. Often Exodia the Forbidden One is printed as an ultra rare and the limbs as commons. Yuji's legendary decks prints all 5 pieces as fixed rarity ultra rares. In the TCG artwork, the seal behind the Forbidden One pieces of Exodia is Spellbinding Circle. It's likely a reference to the Egyptian god Osiris. Both share similar aspects, and Osiris was also shattered into pieces by his enemy to contain his power, only to be reassembled is an archetype of dark dragon and machine monsters, as well as a sub-archetype of the Cyber archetype. These cards were used by Zane Truesdale following his rebirth in the Yu-Gi-Oh! X anime as a Forbidden Underworld deck called Cyber Art Reverse in the original. In the anime, the deck's unquenchable thirst for battle and improvement forces its owner to go past his or her limit, slowly damaging the user's body over time. Because of this drawback, only duelists with strong wills and dreams of progression can use this deck for long periods of time. Depending on how strong-willed the duelist is, the duelist using this deck will experience heart trauma, which may lead to death, as displayed by Zane Truesdale after using this deck for so long. Even Cyrus Truesdale experienced some cardiovascular pain when he decided to take over Zane's duel against Makoto Inatsu. However, Cyrus was able to overcome this problem by respecting the deck, something that Zane had not done. Is an archetype of cards that are also part of the Cyber archetype. They are a group of light machine monsters used by Zane Truesdale, then later by Cyrus Truesdale in the Yu-Gi-Oh! X anime and manga. Cyber Dragon and its evolutions serve as a spiritual successor towards the Blue Eyes White Dragon cards. Type of cards related to machine fusion monsters and the Cyber Dragon archetype. It support the viewed and structured deck Blitzkrieg of the Match Light Dragons. Known as Demon Summoning in Japanese, is a series of Ether level or rank 6 Dark Fiend monsters with 2500 attack points and 1200 defense points. It is a sub-series of the Archfiend archetype, comprised of summons, culinary trains. Monsters are a group of effect monsters exclusive to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime with the ability Armor. Valen uses these cards during the Waking the Dragon story arc season 4. He often sacrifices parts of his armor to either inflict damage to his opponent or weaken their monster. All armor monsters share two effects, only one. Armor monster can attack per turn, and if there are two or more armor monsters on a player's side of the field and one of them is declared as an attack target, that player can change the target to another armor monster he or she controls. These effects are derived from the fact that the armor monsters equip on the duelist using them, so there is only one duelist to attack with the armor. For the only one armor monster can attack part, and when faced with an attack, the user can choose which armor piece gets attacked. For the attack redirection part, most armor monsters have 0 attack points and thus are ill-suited to attacking, with the exception of Buster Knuckle and Burning due to their attack point boosting effects instead. Armor monsters focus on using effect damage and destroying the opponent's monsters with their effects. Because they are most effective when together, armor monsters can use gravitation cards to summon themselves en masse. All armor monsters besides double cloth armor are level 4 or lower. The central monster to this deck is Psychic Armor Head, which allows the player to add armor monsters to their hand during their draw phase and is required to be on the field to activate the mentioned gravitation cards. In the anime, they are displayed by equipping onto the duelist who plays them, rather than by becoming monsters. The duelist then physically attacks his opponent's monsters himself. Also, psychic armor head, while active, gives the user certain information cards effects, success probabilities, suggested defense etc. Whether the success probability information is accurate or not is unknown. This is also similar to the readout on the dual runner's helmets in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. The cards thematically are very similar to the Mechlord Emperors and other monster series that relies on combining different parts to become stronger, and they represent themselves in the anime as forming one large monster. One summoned together, one Valor summons all the pieces of the armor. He equips them to himself, much like the Saint Seiya anime. Known as Demon is an archetype in the OCG, and is one of the very first archetypes to appear in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise. Members appear in a myriad of sets due to the string required for inclusion being a simple word in Japanese. While many duelists such as Yuji Muto and Jack Atlas use Archfiend cards in the anime and manga, as a result, only Titan of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX and Reizo Akuma of Yu-Gi-Oh! D Teams X will run dedicated Archfiend decks. The majority of the monsters in this archetype are Archfiend monsters, but there are many monsters of other attributes and types. The archetype contains the Red Dragon Archfiend sub-archetype and the Summoned Skull sub-series. Dragon is an archetype of the dragon forms of the three legendary knights. The archetype was introduced in Dragons of Legend and was featured in the Waking the Dragons arc of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. Despite all of the members of this archetype lacking legendary dragon in their names, they each include a name condition that causes them to always be treated as legendary dragon cards. The names of the legendary dragons come from the ancient philosopher Plato's workings. The specific body part and the name corresponds to where they were stabbed and sealed during the war in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. Legendary Dragon of White is not a legendary dragon card. Knight is an archetype of the true forms of the three legendary dragons. This archetype was introduced in Dragons of Legend and was featured towards the end of the Waking the Dragons arc of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. All of its members are level 8 light warrior monsters with 2800 attack points and 1800 defense points. The legendary knights are named after Plato's late dialogues and characters that appear in them. Voices and mannerisms. The three legendary knights sound, resemble and act like their owners. Hermes sounds and looks like Joey, though he is brunette. Crasius sounds and looks like Cable, though he is blonde, and Dematius sounds and looks like Yami Yuji, however he is fully blonde. Also, the physical height of the knights is comparative with respect to their owners. Crasius is the tallest, as is Cable. Dematius is the shortest like Yami. Hero in the Japanese manga is a hero sub-archetype used by Jaden Yuki in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX manga. Jaden started using this archetype after the tournament to duel the Kaiser, when he decided to build in all his deck, which would eventually grow into his ultimate deck, since the elemental hero monsters he used previously were from Koihibiki's deck. Only the fusion monsters of this archetype were released into the OCG and subsequently TCG. The transformation summon method is utilized by this archetype design, while the elemental hero archetype is said to be based off of American superheroes. It can also be assumed that the masked hero archetype is a salute to the Japanese tokusatsu series Kamen Rider. In addition to kamen meaning masked, there are several similarities between the two, such the recurring form changing and transformations of Kamen Riders. The double attacks are also similar to the original Kamen Riders 1 and 2 rider double techniques. These are also related to the Inzector, since their designs are only related to only one Kamen Rider except for Hopper and Ladybug. In the Japanese manga, is an archetype of dark warrior monsters, as well as a sub-archetype of the hero archetype, used by Aster Phoenix and the Uchiho. GX manga appearance. Most Vision hero monsters wear helmets with a singular lens where the face would be, and have an almost robotic appearance. Etymology. The name of this archetype comes from their change in appearance and functionality, while in the spell and trap zone. In the manga, while in the spell and trap zone, Vision hero monsters are called visions or mirages. Hero is a series of link monsters, and a subgroup of the hero archetype. All of its members are Dark Warrior monsters, except for the following appearance. The extra hero monsters released thus far bear resemblance to comic book superheroes like most other hero monsters, with a more futuristic appearance than the others. Etymology. The name of this archetype references the fact that they are link monsters which, due to new master rule, are required to summon more than one extra deck monster outside of the extra monster zone. Hero is an archetype of fiend monsters with various attributes that are part of the hero archetype used by Jadanuki in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX anime temporarily after being possessed by the Supreme King. They are corrupted versions of Jaden's elemental hero monsters. Most of the evil hero monsters are fusion summoned by fusing existing elemental hero monsters with dark fusion instead of the traditional polymerization. They were released in Gladiator's Assault, but were mainly featured in Duelist Pack Jadanuki 3. The only evil hero monsters to not have a separate counterpart are Evil Hero Infernal Gainer and Evil Hero Infernal Prodigy prior to the problem-solving card text renamed to distinguish between cards in the hero archetype and cards that simply include hero in their name. Cards that support the hero archetype and the OCG instead supported Elemental Hero, Destiny Hero and Evil Hero, as a group, and the TCG Masked Hero and Vision Hero had not been released in the TCG at that time. This was the only time Evil Hero was treated as an archetype before the release of their first support in Duelist Pack, Legend Duelist 5 in the OCG and Legendary Duelists, Immortal Destiny in the TCG. Designs of the evil hero monsters bear some similarity to various demonic superheroes, villains, and anti-heroes, such as the Darkness, Hellboy, and Witchblade. The evil hero monsters appear to have allusions to hell. Most of them have the word hell in their Japanese attack and effect names, as well as fire being a prominent feature among them. For example, the attack name of Inferno Wing is Inferno Blast and its effect name is Hell Backfire. Infernal Sniper, whose Japanese name is Hell Sniper, has the effect name Hell Shot. The Japanese names of Infernal Gainer and Malicious Fiend are Hell Gainer and Malicious Devil respectively. Additionally, when Dark Jatia, whose background appears to be hell, was summoned in the anime, a big burst of lava erupted from the ground. There is an archetype introduced in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX that includes 6 archetypes and series. In the anime, Jaden Yuki uses Elemental Hero and Neospatial monsters. Aster Phoenix uses Destiny Hero monsters but previously also used Elemental Hero, and Jaden as the Supreme King uses Elemental Hero and Evil Hero monsters. In the manga, Jaden uses Elemental Hero and Masked Hero monsters, while Aster uses Vision Hero monsters. Extra hero monsters are the only ones to not appear in either the anime or the manga. Hero monsters are often based on comic book, cartoon, or movie-style heroes. The hero archetype is the largest archetype in the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise. Is a hero sub-archetype of Dark Warrior monsters used by Aster Phoenix in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX anime, as well as by his alternate universe counterpart in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc V anime. Since their debut, they have been seen as an antithesis to the elemental hero archetype, as specific cards somewhat resemble certain elemental hero monsters. Relation to other hero monsters. Currently, the only Destiny Hero related card that involves the elemental hero archetype is T-Time. However, elemental hero cards such as Elemental Hero Stratus, Elemental Hero Ocean, Elemental Hero Divine Neos, Heroes Bond, and Elemental Hero Absolute Zero all support Destiny Hero monsters, as does the Evil Hero Infernal Prodigy. Elemental Hero Phoenix Enforcer and Elemental Hero Shining Phoenix Enforcer can be considered pseudo-Destiny Hero monsters, as they have only been owned and used to date by Aster Phoenix, and their Japanese name also have Guy at the end. Destiny Hero monsters are also supported by the Masked Hero and Vision Hero monsters, such as Masked Hero Goka, Masked Hero Vapor, Masked Change, Vision Hero Trinity, Vision Hero Adoration, and Vision Hero Vine. Hero is a hero sub-archetype used by both Jaden Yuki and Aster Phoenix for a brief period of time until the latter changed to Destiny Heroes in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX anime. Jaden also used this archetype, along with his mentor Koi Hibiki, in the manga. All members of this sub-archetype are warrior monsters, except for the following: Plant Elemental Hero Nosp and Elemental Hero Poison Rose, Hero Elemental Hero Heat, Elemental Hero Lady Heat, and Elemental Hero Inferno Spellcaster, Elemental Hero Neos Kriega Thunder, Elemental Hero Voltec. They were designed by Kazuki Takahashi, and are themed after comic book superheroes in the anime and are based off natural elements in the manga. Elemental Hero decks focus heavily on fusion summoning. Most of these fall into two primary Elemental Hero monsters categories that can be fused with one another. Normal monsters from the anime named materials for fusion summoning, and manga counterparts that are retrained versions with effects. Magician, known as Black Magician in the Japanese version, is an archetype that has been a part of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise since its beginning, with Dark Magician appearing as Yuji Muto's ace card. During the Battle City arc and subsequent arcs, more cards were introduced, such as Dark Magician Girl. Originally a series, the release of the Eye of Timaeus cemented its status as an archetype. The archetype also contains the sub-archetype Dark Magician Girl. Magician Girl, known as Black Magician Girl in Japanese version, is both an archetype and a sub-archetype of the Dark Magician and Magician Girl archetypes. They are all based on Dark Magician Girl. It is only supported by the spell card Dark Burning Attack.